Have you ever paused for a moment and asked yourself a quiet but unsettling question? What if many of the struggles, disappointments, and confusing moments in your life are not random at all, but lessons that the world quietly tried to teach you long ago? What if there were truths about human nature, ambition, trust, leadership, and power that were always present around you, but no one ever explained them clearly? And what if understanding those truths earlier could have changed the way you see people, the way you make decisions, and even the direction of your life? Across centuries of human history, observers of society have tried to understand the strange and complicated patterns of human behavior. Among them was the Renaissance thinker Niccolò Machiavelli, a man who spent years watching how leaders rise, how they fall, how alliances form, and how quickly loyalty can disappear when circumstances change. He did not simply study kings and rulers. In truth, he studied people, their hopes, their fears, their ambitions, and the quiet motivations that guide their decisions even when they do not realize it themselves. The world that Machiavelli observed was full of conflict, shifting alliances, political ambition, and uncertainty. Yet the patterns he noticed were not limited to royal courts or powerful governments. They exist in every workplace, every community, every friendship, and every moment where human beings interact with one another. His reflections became a mirror through which we can examine the deeper truths about life and leadership. Many people expect life to be fair, simple, and predictable. As children, we are often told that if we are kind, honest, and hardworking, everything will unfold smoothly. But as the years pass, reality begins to feel more complicated. People sometimes break promises. Opportunities sometimes disappear. Hard work does not always receive immediate reward. And sometimes the world reveals lessons that feel uncomfortable to accept. These lessons are what some might call brutal truths. Not brutal because they encourage cruelty, but because they reveal realities that are difficult to face. They challenge the comforting stories we tell ourselves about how life should work, yet there is a hidden gift within these truths. When understood wisely, they do not make a person cynical or bitter. Instead, they create clarity. They help a person see the world with calm awareness rather than confusion. They encourage responsibility, thoughtful decision-making, and the quiet strength that comes from understanding human nature. The first truth begins with a simple observation about expectations. Many people grow up believing that the world owes them fairness. They believe that effort will always lead to reward, that kindness will always be returned with kindness, and that honesty will always be respected. These beliefs are comforting, but life often reveals a more complex picture. The world does not operate like a perfectly balanced scale. It is shaped by countless forces: ambition, competition, fear, pride, and opportunity. Sometimes a person who works very hard may still struggle, while another person finds success through timing, connections, or circumstances. This reality can feel discouraging at first, but it also contains an empowering message. When a person understands that life is not automatically fair, they stop waiting for fairness to appear. Instead, they begin preparing themselves to navigate the world with awareness, patience, and strategy. Another quiet truth appears in the nature of human attention. People often imagine that everyone around them is closely observing their actions, judging their mistakes, or analyzing their choices. Yet most individuals are deeply focused on their own lives, their own worries, and their own goals. This means that many fears about embarrassment or failure exist mainly in our imagination. A person who understands this truth gains a powerful kind of freedom. They begin to realize that the world is not constantly watching. They can experiment, learn, make mistakes, and grow without the heavy weight of imagined judgment. Human relationships reveal another important pattern. Trust is one of the most valuable elements in any relationship, yet it is also one of the most fragile. It is built slowly through consistent behavior and honest actions, but it can disappear quickly through carelessness or broken promises. Throughout history, leaders who maintained strong alliances understood the importance of reliability. They did not simply speak about loyalty. They demonstrated it through their actions over time. This lesson applies not only to political leadership, but also to friendships, families, and communities. People often believe that intelligence alone determines success. However, the world frequently rewards a different quality: the ability to understand people. Emotional awareness, patience, and the ability to read situations carefully often prove more valuable than raw knowledge. A person may possess many facts and ideas, but if they cannot understand how others think and feel, their influence remains limited. Leaders who succeed are often those who observe quietly, listen carefully, and recognize the deeper motivations behind human behavior. Another truth that appears repeatedly in life is the unpredictable nature of opportunity. Opportunities rarely arrive with clear announcements or perfect timing. Sometimes they appear during moments that seem inconvenient or uncertain. History offers many examples of individuals who recognized opportunity in difficult moments. They did not wait for perfect conditions. Instead, they acted with courage when others hesitated. This does not mean acting recklessly. It means understanding that progress often requires movement, even when the path is not completely clear. There is also a subtle truth about reputation. A person's reputation is shaped not only by their intentions, but by how their actions are perceived. This can feel frustrating because intentions are invisible. The world can only observe behavior. Wise individuals understand this difference. They remain sincere in their values, but they also recognize the importance of consistency. When actions repeatedly reflect honesty, patience, and responsibility, reputation gradually becomes a powerful form of influence. People often remember emotional experiences more strongly than logical explanations. A single moment of kindness or respect can remain in someone's memory for years. In the same way, a moment of disrespect can create long-lasting damage. Because of this, thoughtful leaders pay attention not only to decisions, but also to how those decisions affect people emotionally. They understand that influence grows when people feel respected, valued, and understood. Another truth emerges in the nature of ambition. Ambition itself is not harmful. In fact, it often drives progress and creativity. However, ambition without self-awareness can become destructive. When a person pursues success without reflection, they may sacrifice relationships, integrity, or long-term stability. The challenge is balance. Healthy ambition pushes a person to grow while still respecting the importance of ethics and responsibility. It asks a simple question again and again: what kind of success truly matters? Human beings are also deeply influenced by perception. What people believe to be true can shape their decisions just as strongly as what is actually true. Throughout history, leaders have understood the power of narrative and communication. They recognize that ideas, stories, and symbols can guide public opinion in powerful ways. This insight does not encourage manipulation. Instead, it reminds us of the responsibility that comes with influence. When someone communicates with honesty and clarity, they help create understanding rather than confusion. Another truth that life reveals slowly is that confidence is often built through action, rather than waiting for perfect certainty. Many individuals delay important decisions because they hope for complete assurance that everything will work out perfectly. Yet confidence rarely appears before action. It grows after a person begins moving forward, learning from experience, adjusting their approach, and discovering their own capabilities through effort. Patience is another powerful but often misunderstood strength. In a fast-moving world, people sometimes believe that immediate results define success, but many meaningful achievements require long periods of steady effort. Think of great cities, scientific discoveries, or cultural achievements throughout history. They were rarely created overnight. They emerged through years, sometimes decades, of persistent work and thoughtful planning. There is also a quiet truth about criticism. Many people fear criticism so strongly that they avoid taking risks altogether. Yet criticism is often the natural companion of visibility and progress. When a person attempts something, meaningful, others will naturally respond with opinions. Some will be supportive. Others may be skeptical. Learning to listen calmly, evaluate feedback wisely, and continue improving is an essential skill for leadership and personal growth. Another lesson appears in the nature of independence. Relying completely on external approval can trap a person in endless uncertainty. When decisions depend entirely on pleasing others, clarity becomes difficult. Strong individuals develop an internal compass based on values, reflection, and thoughtful reasoning. They remain open to advice, but they do not lose their sense of direction. Life also teaches that change is constant. Situations that seem stable today can transform quickly tomorrow. Economic systems shift. Technology evolves. Cultural ideas change. Leaders who adapt thoughtfully to change remain resilient, while those who cling rigidly to old patterns often struggle. Adaptability does not mean abandoning principles. It means understanding the difference between core values, which remain steady, and strategies which must evolve as circumstances change. Another truth about human behavior is that fear often shapes decisions more strongly than logic. People may avoid opportunities because they fear failure. They may resist change because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Understanding this pattern allows thoughtful leaders to approach fear with patience rather than frustration. They create environments where people feel safe to explore ideas, share concerns, and gradually build confidence. The passage of time also reveals the importance of discipline. Motivation can feel powerful in the beginning of a new project, but motivation naturally rises and falls. Discipline is what continues the journey when excitement fades. Artists, writers, scientists, and entrepreneurs often share a common habit. They continue working. Even during quiet periods when progress feels slow. Over time, small, consistent actions create results that appear remarkable to outsiders. Another truth that emerges through experience is that not every relationship will last forever. Some connections fade as people grow in different directions. This can feel painful, yet it is often a natural part of life. Understanding this reality allows a person to appreciate relationships deeply while they exist, without clinging to unrealistic expectations about permanence. Human pride also plays a powerful role in society. Pride can inspire achievement and personal dignity. However, excessive pride can prevent people from admitting mistakes or learning new ideas. Wise individuals cultivate humility alongside confidence. They recognize that growth requires the willingness to say, "I was wrong, and I am ready to learn." Another important truth is that silence can sometimes reveal more than constant conversation. Observing quietly allows a person to notice subtle patterns in behavior, tone, and decision-making. Many effective leaders throughout history developed their insights not by speaking first, but by listening carefully to others before forming conclusions. Life inevitably includes moments of disappointment, failure, or unexpected loss. These experiences can feel overwhelming in the moment, yet they often become turning points that strengthen character and wisdom. Resilience does not mean ignoring pain. It means learning from hardship and continuing forward with renewed understanding. Another observation concerns the nature of influence. True influence rarely comes from force or authority alone. It grows when people trust a person's judgment and believe that their intentions are responsible and thoughtful. Trust, once earned, becomes one of the most powerful forms of leaders. As we continue exploring these reflections, it becomes clear that the truths of life are rarely simple rules. They are patterns, insights, and reminders about how human nature operates. The world is complex, filled with competing desires, unpredictable events, and countless individual choices. Yet within this complexity there is also opportunity for wisdom. Each lesson learned through observation and reflection becomes a small light that guides future decisions. And perhaps the most important realization of all is that wisdom does not arrive suddenly at the end of life. It grows gradually through curiosity, humility, and the willingness to examine both success and failure with honesty. The reflections we have begun exploring are only the beginning. There are many more truths hidden within the patterns of human ambition, loyalty, courage, and responsibility. And as we continue this journey of understanding, an even deeper question begins to emerge quietly in the background. If these truths about life and human nature have always existed around us, why do so many people only begin to notice them after years of confusion, struggle, and experience? And more importantly, what happens when someone finally begins to see the world clearly, not with fear but with awareness, patience, and thoughtful strength? The question slowly settles into the mind like a quiet echo. Why do so many people only begin to understand life after they have already experienced disappointment, betrayal, or lost opportunity? Why do the deeper patterns of human nature remain hidden until time reveals them through experience? The answer may lie in a simple truth about human perception. When we are young, we often see the world through the lens of hope and simplicity. We believe that intentions always matter more than outcomes. We assume that honesty will always be rewarded, and that loyalty will always be returned. These beliefs are comforting because they paint a picture of a predictable and fair world. But as time passes, reality begins to show its more complicated shape. The observer of human behavior that we mentioned earlier, Niccolò Machiavelli, spent much of his life watching how leaders gained power, how they lost it, and how quickly public support could change when circumstances shifted. What fascinated him most was not simply politics, it was the deep and often hidden motivations that guide human actions. People rarely act from a single reason. Their decisions are often influenced by pride, fear, opportunity, loyalty, personal benefit, and the desire for recognition. These forces mix together quietly beneath the surface of everyday life. One of the next truths that many people discover slowly is that words are easy to speak, but actions reveal true priorities. A person may promise support, loyalty, or cooperation, but only time and behavior demonstrate whether those promises carry real meaning. This truth is not meant to create suspicion toward everyone. Instead, it encourages thoughtful observation. Wise individuals listen carefully to words, but they also watch patterns of action. Over time, those patterns reveal character more clearly than any speech ever could. Another truth appears when we examine the nature of comfort. Human beings naturally seek comfort and security, yet comfort can quietly become an invisible barrier that prevents growth. When life feels predictable, people often stop challenging themselves. They remain in familiar routines even when new opportunities are waiting beyond their comfort zone. History repeatedly shows that progress often begins when someone is willing to step into uncertainty. Explorers crossed unknown oceans. Scientists tested ideas that others doubted. Artists created new forms of expression even when their work was misunderstood at first. The common thread among these stories is courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act while fear is present. Another lesson that life gradually teaches is that admiration from others can be both inspiring and dangerous. Recognition feels rewarding because it signals approval and respect. However, when a person becomes too dependent on admiration, their decisions may slowly begin to change. Instead of asking what is wise or meaningful, they may begin asking what will bring the most applause. This shift can lead people away from authenticity and toward performance. True leadership often requires the opposite path. Sometimes the most responsible decision is not the most popular one. Leaders who understand this remain grounded in their values, even when approval becomes uncertain. There is also an important truth about how quickly circumstances can change. Many individuals assume that the current situation will continue indefinitely. If life feels stable, they believe it will remain stable. If success appears secure, they believe it cannot disappear. Yet history shows that change can arrive suddenly. Economic systems shift. New ideas replace old traditions. Technology transforms entire industries. The individuals who navigate change successfully are often those who remain curious and adaptable. They continue learning even when they are already successful. They question assumptions and remain aware that stability can sometimes be temporary. Another quiet truth concerns the difference between control and influence. Many people try to control every aspect of their environment. They attempt to manage every detail, every opinion, every possible outcome. But complete control is rarely possible in a world filled with independent minds and unpredictable events. Influence, however, operates differently. Influence grows through trust, credibility, and consistent behavior. When people respect someone's judgment and character, they naturally become open to guidance. This means that influence often begins with self-discipline. When a person demonstrates reliability, patience, and thoughtful reasoning, others begin to notice. Gradually, their voice carries greater weight. There is also a subtle truth about comparison. In the modern world, it is easy to compare personal progress with the visible success of others. Social platforms, news stories, and public recognition often highlight achievements without revealing the struggles behind them. This can create the illusion that everyone else is moving forward faster. Yet every life follows a unique timeline shaped by different challenges, opportunities, and circumstances. Comparing journeys can lead to unnecessary frustration. A wiser approach is to focus on personal growth. The question becomes not whether someone else is ahead, but whether you are learning, improving, and moving toward meaningful goals. Another important lesson involves the power of preparation. Opportunities often appear suddenly, but the ability to take advantage of them usually depends on preparation that happened long before the opportunity arrived. Consider the musician who practices for years before performing on a large stage, or the scientist who spends decades studying a problem before making a discovery that changes the world. From the outside, these moments may appear sudden, yet they are actually the visible result of long periods of preparation. Life also reveals the importance of boundaries. Many people want to help others and maintain harmony in relationships. These intentions are admirable. However, without healthy boundaries, generosity can sometimes turn into exhaustion. A person who constantly says yes to every request may slowly lose time for their own responsibilities and well-being. Healthy boundaries are not acts of selfishness. They are expressions of clarity. They allow individuals to support others while still protecting the energy needed to pursue their own purpose. Another truth that often surprises people is how strongly emotions influence decisions. Even when individuals believe they are acting purely through logic, emotions such as pride, fear, and excitement quietly shape their choices. Understanding this does not weaken decision-making. It strengthens it. When people recognize the emotional forces at work within themselves, they can pause, reflect, and evaluate situations more calmly. Self-awareness becomes a powerful tool for wiser judgment. The passage of time also reveals an interesting pattern in how people remember success and failure. Failures often feel overwhelming in the moment. They can create embarrassment, disappointment, or self-doubt. Yet many years later, those same experiences may appear very different. They may be remembered as turning points that redirected a life towards something better. Success, on the other hand, can sometimes create complacency if it is not balanced with reflection. Achievements are important, but they also require continued humility and learning. Another truth concerns the influence of environment. Human behavior is strongly shaped by the people and ideas that surround us. A supportive environment encourages growth, curiosity, and confidence. A negative environment can slowly drain motivation and creativity. This is why thoughtful individuals choose their surroundings carefully. They seek communities that encourage learning, integrity, and constructive dialogue. There is also a lesson hidden within the concept of time itself. Time moves forward with quiet consistency. Every day offers the same 24 hours to each person, regardless of wealth, status, or reputation. The difference between many lives often comes down to how those hours are used. Small daily decisions accumulate into large results over years. A few minutes spent learning each day can become deep expertise over a decade. A few moments of reflection can gradually strengthen wisdom and emotional balance. Another truth appears when we examine the nature of courage. Many people imagine courage as dramatic acts of bravery during extraordinary moments. Yet in reality, courage often appears in quiet decisions. It appears when someone admits a mistake, when they apologize sincerely, when they continue pursuing a meaningful goal despite temporary failure. These quiet acts rarely appear in headlines, yet they shape character more deeply than dramatic gestures. Another lesson about human nature involves the desire for certainty. People naturally want clear answers about the future. They want guarantees that their efforts will succeed. But life rarely offers complete certainty. Wise individuals learn to move forward despite uncertainty. They gather information, think carefully, and then act with thoughtful confidence, even when the outcome cannot be perfectly predicted. There is also a powerful truth about responsibility. Blaming circumstances or other people may provide temporary comfort, but it rarely leads to progress. Responsibility, on the other hand, creates the power to change. When a person accepts responsibility for their actions and decisions, they gain the ability to learn, adjust, and improve. This shift in perspective can transform obstacles into opportunities for growth. Another pattern in human behavior concerns attention. What people focus on tends to grow in importance. If someone constantly focuses on fear, frustration, or resentment, those emotions begin to dominate their experience of life. If they focus on learning, gratitude, and meaningful goals, their perspective gradually shifts toward possibility. Attention acts like a lens that shapes how reality is perceived. Another truth about life is that not every effort will succeed, even when it is sincere and well-planned. Projects sometimes fail, plans sometimes collapse, unexpected obstacles appear. However, resilience emerges when individuals treat these moments not as permanent defeat, but as information. Each challenge reveals something about strategy, timing, or preparation. Over time, these lessons accumulate into experience. Another quiet observation concerns influence and silence. Sometimes the most powerful response in a conversation is not an immediate reply but thoughtful silence. Silence allows emotions to settle, and ideas to become clearer. It prevents impulsive reactions that might later create regret. Many skilled negotiators, leaders, and communicators understand the power of pause. Life also teaches that gratitude can coexist with ambition. Some people believe that being grateful means becoming satisfied with the current situation and abandoning the desire for progress. In reality, gratitude and ambition can support each other. Gratitude creates appreciation for what already exists. Ambition encourages the pursuit of meaningful improvement. Together, they form a balanced mindset. Another truth appears in the relationship between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge consists of facts, information, and ideas. Wisdom involves understanding when and how to apply that knowledge responsibly. A person may possess great knowledge, but still struggle with wise decision-making if they lack reflection and emotional awareness. Wisdom develops through experience, observation, and thoughtful contemplation. As these insights continue to unfold, the pattern becomes clearer. Life is not simply a sequence of random events. T is also a teacher. Every success, every challenge, every relationship, and every decision quietly contributes to the growth of understanding. Yet one deeper question still remains waiting ahead. If these truths gradually reveal themselves through experience, is it possible to recognize them earlier? Can someone learn to observe human nature carefully enough to understand these patterns before life forces them to learn the hard way? And if a person begins to see these patterns clearly, how might that awareness change the way they approach ambition, leadership, and the responsibilities that come with influence? The realization that life has patterns, lessons, and hidden truths can feel both liberating and intimidating. When we begin to see clearly, it is as if a veil has been lifted, revealing the intricate dance of human ambition, emotion, and influence that quietly shapes every moment. Yet clarity is not a destination. It is a lens, a way of observing, reflecting, and choosing thoughtfully as one moves forward. One of the next truths that emerges with this awareness is the quiet power of observation. People often underestimate what can be learned by simply watching. By noticing the subtle ways people react under pressure, how they treat others when no one is watching, or the patterns in their behavior over time, one begins to understand motives and intentions that words alone cannot convey. Observation is not about judgment or suspicion. It is about clarity. It is the art of seeing reality as it is, not as one wishes it to be. Closely tied to observation is the realization that timing is often as important as action. Human history is full of examples where the right action at the wrong time led to failure, while patient and thoughtful timing produced extraordinary results. The challenge is not in rushing or delaying recklessly, but in cultivating a sense of awareness, a kind of quiet intuition that emerges from careful attention, reflection, and experience. This ability to sense the flow of circumstances is often what separates effective leaders and thoughtful individuals from those who act impulsively or reactively. Another truth lies in the balance between strength and flexibility. People admire leaders who appear decisive, confident, and strong. Yet the strongest leaders are rarely rigid. They understand that circumstances change, that people are unpredictable, and that strategy must evolve without compromising core values. Flexibility does not mean weakness. It means resilience, the capacity to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing integrity, and to continue progressing even when the path is uncertain. Human relationships continue to reveal lessons about influence, trust, and authenticity. Relationships are the channels through which most influence flows, yet they are delicate. Loyalty can be fleeting, and misunderstandings can grow unnoticed until they become formidable obstacles. Wise individuals recognize the importance of nurturing relationships thoughtfully. They act with consistency, honesty, and respect. They recognize that influence is built slowly, often over years, and that it can be lost in a single careless moment. A related truth concerns communication. Words are powerful, but their power depends on clarity, intent, and timing. Speaking without awareness can create confusion, resentment, or misunderstanding. Listening, on the other hand, creates insight, connection, and influence. Those who master the art of thoughtful communication learn to balance honesty with tact, expression with empathy, and persuasion with responsibility. Life also teaches that preparation is inseparable from opportunity. Opportunities rarely announce themselves with perfect clarity. They often appear as subtle openings, signals, or challenges disguised as difficulties. Without preparation, skills honed over time, knowledge accumulated, and habits developed, opportunities can be overlooked or mishandled. History repeatedly shows that success is rarely a matter of luck. It is the intersection of readiness and timing. Another truth that often emerges is the inevitability of conflict and differing perspectives. People rarely agree completely. Differences in values, priorities, and perceptions are natural. Attempting to eliminate all conflict is not realistic. Instead, wise individuals learn to navigate disagreements with thoughtfulness, patience, and a focus on constructive resolution. They recognize that conflict, when approached responsibly, can reveal new insights, strengthen understanding, and even foster growth. Closely connected is the lesson of self-control. Impulse, anger, pride, or fear can distort perception and decision-making. Those who cultivate self-control create space for reason, clarity, and reflection. This does not mean suppressing emotion entirely, but rather managing it in a way that allows thoughtful action to emerge. Emotion, when understood and directed wisely, becomes a tool rather than a source of chaos. Another subtle truth is the relationship between humility and influence. People are naturally drawn to those who are confident yet grounded. Excessive pride, arrogance, or insistence on being right often alienates others. Humility does not weaken authority, it enhances it. A leader or individual who can acknowledge limitations, listen openly, and learn continuously inspires trust, loyalty, and respect far more effectively than one who seeks to dominate through force or ego. Life also shows that decisions often carry consequences beyond what is immediately visible. Actions create ripples that affect situations, relationships, and opportunities in ways that might only be understood later. Thoughtful individuals anticipate consequences without attempting impossible foresight. They reflect on potential outcomes, consider the perspectives of others, and act in ways that align with their values and long-term objectives. Another truth appears in the power of consistency. Habits, repeated behaviors, and small daily choices accumulate over time. They often create far more impact than isolated acts of brilliance or sudden bursts of effort. Consistency builds trust, skill, and resilience. Those who cultivate it quietly strengthen their influence and capacity to act effectively when critical moments arise. Human ambition, when guided by reflection, also reveals important lessons. Ambition is neither inherently good nor bad. It becomes constructive when paired with self-awareness, ethical grounding, and an understanding of human limitations. Ambition that lacks reflection can lead to reckless decisions, strained relationships, or lost opportunity. Ambition guided by insight transforms vision into achievement while maintaining integrity and respect for others. The nature of fear is another pattern that life unveils. Fear is universal. It shapes decisions, limits exploration, and sometimes creates hesitation at the very moments when courage is required most. Recognizing fear, understanding its sources, and acting despite it is a hallmark of responsible leadership and personal growth. Fear does not disappear, but it can be managed through awareness, preparation, and deliberate action. Another lesson involves the power of reflection. Experience alone does not automatically produce wisdom. Reflection, the conscious examination of choices, outcomes, and motives, is what converts experience into insight. Reflection allows individuals to see patterns, recognize mistakes, and refine their understanding of human behavior and the forces that shape life. Human nature itself offers insights that are often difficult to accept. People are complex. They are capable of generosity, loyalty, and courage, yet also capable of inconsistency, self-interest, and fear. Understanding this duality creates perspective. It allows individuals to approach others with both empathy and realism, to navigate relationships thoughtfully, and to respond to challenges with measured clarity rather than idealistic expectation. Another truth is that influence and authority are fragile when divorced from trust and integrity. Power that relies solely on force, coercion, or fear is temporary. Influence grounded in consistent action, fairness, and credibility endures. Those who cultivate integrity in thought, word, and deed build authority that persists even in turbulent circumstances. Life also reveals that learning is lifelong. No individual ever reaches a point of perfect knowledge or complete understanding. Circumstances evolve, People change, and ideas develop over time. Those who remain curious, humble, and open to learning continue to grow, adapt, and act effectively throughout their lives. Another pattern that emerges is the importance of clarity in values. Decisions often become complicated when underlying principles are unclear. Those who define their core values, what they stand for, what they will not compromise, create a framework that guides decisions, strengthens consistency, and fosters confidence even in the midst of uncertainty. Human experience also shows the subtle interplay between patience and action. Waiting passively rarely creates progress, but impulsive action without consideration often leads to error. Wisdom lies in balancing careful preparation with timely initiative, in knowing when to act decisively and when to pause for reflection. Another truth concerns the fleeting nature of recognition. Praise, admirat, ion, and social validation are temporary and often unpredictable. Relying on them as the measure of worth leads to insecurity. True stability emerges from internal clarity, commitment to values, and a focus on meaningful impact rather than fleeting approval. The complexity of life also teaches that influence is relational. Authority or power alone does not guarantee respect or cooperation. Influence grows when individuals perceive alignment between words and actions, values and behavior, intention and outcome. Consistency, fairness, and visible integrity create networks of trust that magnify impact far more effectively than coercion or manipulation ever could. Another observation emerges about preparation for adversity. Challenges, setbacks, and failure are inevitable parts of life. Those who anticipate difficulty, develop resilience, and cultivate adaptive strategies are better equipped to respond with clarity and effectiveness. Resilience is not born from comfort. It is forged through experience, reflection, and thoughtful practice. Yet another truth lies in the quiet moments of decision-making. Many people rush choices under pressure, driven by urgency or emotion. Yet the most impactful decisions often emerge when individuals allow themselves space to pause, reflect, and weigh options carefully. Thoughtfulness does not delay action unnecessarily. It ensures that action aligns with long-term objectives and values. Another subtle truth concerns how people interpret behavior. Others often judge actions based on outcomes rather than intentions. A person may act with honesty and care, yet the result may be misunderstood. Awareness of this human tendency encourages patience, measured communication, and careful observation. It reminds individuals that perception matters and that trust and clarity are built over time through consistent behavior. Another truth reveals itself in the understanding of priorities. Human attention is limited. What a person chooses to focus on shapes their experience, development, and influence. Clarity about priorities allows individuals to invest energy in what matters most, to avoid distraction and to create meaningful impact over time. One final truth before the last chapter is that human potential is often underestimated, even by the individual themselves. Growth, skill, resilience, and insight develop gradually, often through repeated effort, reflection, and challenges. Recognizing this potential fosters patience, persistence, and confidence, reminding individuals that progress is cumulative, not instantaneous. And as these truths accumulate, a pattern begins to emerge. Life is neither simple nor random. It is a continuous interplay of action, observation, reflection, and adaptation. Those who engage with this process thoughtfully gain understanding, clarity, and the capacity to navigate both opportunity and challenge with wisdom. Even as these insights become clearer, a deeper question quietly arises. If human nature is so predictable in its patterns, why do so many people struggle to recognize them? And what distinguishes those who develop foresight, self-awareness, and thoughtful judgment from those who continue learning only after repeated hardship? This question sets the stage for the final chapter, where the culmination of awareness, responsibility, and insight will converge into the guiding principles of thoughtful leadership, personal growth, and understanding the world with clarity and purpose. And now we arrive at the point where the lessons of life, the observations of human behavior, and the patterns of ambition and influence converge into a single profound realization. Understanding is not a gift that comes to everyone equally, nor does it arrive simply through age. It is nurtured, and refined through attention, reflection, and the courage to face truths that are often uncomfortable, yet deeply liberating. One of the final truths that life quietly offers is the power of responsibility. Many people look outward, searching for someone or something to blame when circumstances fail to meet their expectations. Yet true growth, influence, and stability emerge when an individual turns inward, examines their own choices, and accepts the consequences of their actions. Responsibility is not a burden. It is the gateway to agency. When a person embraces it, they discover that they are not helpless observers of life, but active participants capable of shaping outcomes through wisdom and deliberate effort. Another truth that emerges at this stage is the extraordinary strength of patience paired with action. Life does not always reward haste. Sudden, impulsive decisions often create temporary results but fail to endure. Yet patience without initiative can lead to stagnation. The key lies in understanding when to act decisively and when to wait, balancing timing with preparedness, and recognizing that thoughtful persistence often achieves more than raw speed. Human perception continues to play a central role in the path toward wisdom. People see the world not only as it is, but also as they interpret it. Perception shapes emotions, decisions, and relationships. Those who cultivate self-awareness and the ability to observe without immediate judgment gain a quiet power, the ability to navigate misunderstandings, anticipate reactions, and guide interactions with clarity and integrity. Another enduring lesson is the subtle but profound value of humility. Humility is not self-deprecation or weakness. It is recognition of one's limits, openness to learning, and awareness of the vast complexity of the world and the people within it. Those who approach life with humility remain teachable, adaptable, and capable of earning trust and respect. It is the quiet companion of strength, a reminder that confidence is most persuasive when balanced by the willingness to listen, reflect, and adjust. Life also shows that courage is often understated. It is not always found in grand gestures or dramatic confrontations. Instead, courage frequently appears in the quieter moments, admitting mistakes, asking difficult questions, making ethically difficult choices, or continuing toward a meaningful goal despite fear. These understated acts accumulate into resilience, character, and lasting influence far more than the occasional spectacular display ever could. Another critical truth is the power of clarity in values. Without a defined sense of what matters most, individuals are easily swayed by external pressures, fleeting trends, or the expectations of others. Those who clarify their principles create a framework for decision-making that allows them to act decisively, maintain integrity, and lead with consistency. Values act as both compass and anchor in a world of unpredictability. As these truths coalesce, a profound insight about human ambition emerges. Ambition is not inherently harmful, nor is it inherently noble. Its impact depends entirely on how it is directed. Ambition paired with reflection, self-awareness, and ethical grounding becomes a force for creativity, progress, and personal growth. Ambition without these anchors can lead to frustration, strained relationships, and ethical compromise. The lesson is clear. The energy that drives achievement must be guided by insight, responsibility, and an understanding of the consequences of action. One of the most revealing patterns is how resilience grows. Life will inevitably include setbacks, loss, and failure. No one is exempt from these experiences. Yet, resilience is not the ability to endure. It is the capacity to learn from hardship, adapt strategies, and emerge stronger and wiser. Those who cultivate resilience understand that temporary obstacles are often lessons in disguise, opportunities for reflection and growth that prepare them for greater challenges ahead. Another truth that life insists on teaching is the subtle interplay between influence and integrity. Authority and power alone rarely inspire loyalty or trust. Influence is earned over time through consistency, fairness, and visible alignment between words and actions. Leaders, thinkers, and individuals who demonstrate integrity in small matters develop influence that persists even in turbulent circumstances, while those who rely solely on force, charm, or manipulation see their power fade when conditions change. There is also a quiet but profound lesson in the use of attention. What a person focuses on expands in significance. Focusing excessively on fear, resentment, or comparison often distorts perception and limits growth. Focusing instead on meaningful goals, reflection, and learning cultivates clarity, progress, and a sense of purpose. Awareness of attention as a tool allows a person to shape their experience of life rather than be passively shaped by it. Human relationships offer one of the deepest insights. Loyalty, trust, and connection are cultivated over time and require consistent care. Yet relationships are also subject to the unpredictable nature of human emotion and circumstance. The wise do not cling desperately, nor do they assume permanence. They invest thoughtfully, act with integrity, and navigate the delicate balance between attachment and independence, recognizing that influence and trust are always earned and never guaranteed. Another lesson that emerges at this stage of understanding is the subtle strength of reflection. Experience alone does not guarantee wisdom. Reflection, the deliberate examination of motives, actions, and outcomes, is what converts experience into insight. Those who pause to consider the lessons embedded in their choices develop foresight, deeper judgment, and a capacity for measured action that others often lack. The interconnectedness of preparation, opportunity, and action also becomes evident. Opportunities rarely arrive with announcements or guarantees. They appear in moments that require readiness, judgment, and courage. Individuals who cultivate skills, knowledge, and awareness position themselves to seize opportunities when they arise. Preparedness transforms potential into achievement, turning chance into meaningful progress. As these truths accumulate, a more comprehensive understanding of human nature crystallizes. People are capable of extraordinary kindness, loyalty, and courage, yet they are also influenced by self-interest, fear, and pride. Recognizing this duality allows a person to act with empathy and realism, to navigate interactions thoughtfully, and to avoid the disillusionment that arises from expecting others to be ideal rather than human. Finally, all of these lessons converge into a single compelling insight. Mastery of life is not about avoiding hardship, manipulating others, or escaping uncertainty. It is about cultivating awareness, responsibility, patience, and ethical strength. It is about observing human behavior without naivety, acting decisively without arrogance. It is about shaping one's character so that influence, ambition, and action are guided by clarity, integrity, and insight. The world will always be complex, filled with unpredictability and challenge. Yet a person who embraces these truths walks with a quiet power. They understand that influence comes from integrity, that opportunity favors the prepared, and that courage, humility, and reflection shape not only outcomes but character. They navigate life not as passive participants, but as active, thoughtful architects of their own journey. And so, as this exploration comes to a close, one final question remains. If understanding these truths transforms the way one engages with the world, how will you choose to move forward? Will you allow awareness to guide your decisions, patience to temper your actions, and reflection to shape your ambition? Will you cultivate trust, act with integrity, and embrace responsibility, even when it is difficult? For in the end, life is less about avoiding challenge and more about mastering the art of engagement with oneself, with others, and with the world as it truly is. It is about choosing wisdom over impulse, understanding over assumption, and thoughtful action over mere reaction. Those who do so walk not only with insight but with power, the quiet, enduring power that comes from knowing the truths of human nature and living in harmony with them. And this is the final enduring lesson. The mastery of life is not measured in fleeting victories or superficial success, but in the clarity, responsibility, and depth of character one cultivates. It is in the courage to face truth, the discipline to act wisely, and the reflection to learn continuously. By embracing these truths, you do not merely survive in the world, you navigate it with insight, purpose, and lasting influence. The question now belongs to you. How will you live, knowing what you now understand about human nature, leadership, and the complexities of life? How will you act with awareness, respond, civility, and wisdom, shaping not only your own path, but the world you touch along the way? This is the power of understanding, the quiet strength of insight, and the enduring reward of seeing the world clearly and acting with integrity. The truths are known. The choice is yours.